Are you looking to take your writing to the next level? Well, if so, you are in the right place, because in today's video, I'm going to talk about 10 words you should remove from your writing today to make your writing even better. I'm currently working on the second book in the electrical saga, The Hunted. And one of the things I'm doing in the editing process is going through my manuscript and removing words that don't need to be there to clean up the prose. You can do this with your writing by going to the editing function in Word and click Find. And then you take the word that you're trying to locate and you write it in there, and it will locate that word every time that word's used in the entire manuscript. A couple of cautions for you as you're doing this. You want to make sure that you read that sentence and probably the sentence before and the sentence after. Read it in context and really think about whether or not that word should be eliminated or changed, because it's not always, every single suggestion that Word makes, you don't always want to make it. And another thing to keep in mind is that if it's in dialogue, really think about whether or not you want to remove it. If it's in dialogue, you may want to keep that pesky word that you're trying to eliminate, because in dialogue it fits. It may fit, it may not fit, so keep that in mind. Here are 10 words that I'm working on eliminating from my manuscript, and you can remove them from your manuscript as well. The first one is very. And instead of using the word very, you want to try to find a stronger adjective to describe what's happening. For example, instead of saying Sue is very happy, you could replace very and happy with ecstatic or overjoyed. A stronger adjective will replace very. I've gone through my current manuscript that I'm working on, and I have located all of these words so that I can show you where I've located it and what I change it to. My example is, I've seen them capture people with links to the rebellion before. None of them ever survived for very long. And I change that to say, I've seen them capture people with links to the rebellion before. None of them survived. As you can see in that, I actually removed the last 3 words and just made it cleaner. Cleaned it up, made it more precise to what I really wanted that to say. You may find that when you do a word search for very, that you find lots of places where you can replace that with a stronger adjective. Number 2 is the word thing. Now, thing is a really vague word. It's not specific. It doesn't paint a very clear picture for the reader. So anywhere you have the word thing, you want to replace it with a stronger word. Object, item, element, or it can be whatever that thing is. Be more specific. My example is, he recorded the whole thing and sent it to us. He said our mom was next if we didn't turn ourselves in. She begged us not to come for her, but we couldn't watch her die too, Blaze said. I revised that to say, he recorded the killing and sent it to us. He said our mom was next if we didn't turn ourselves in. She begged us not to come, but we couldn't watch her die too, Blaze said. You can see in that example that I replaced the word thing with exactly what it was talking about, which is the word killing. And now you want to know who's doing the killing. You'll have to read the book to find out, but I replaced it with something more specific, and that's what you want to do with the word thing. Dave and I would like to invite you to join us for a Write With Me, Us, live Monday nights from 6 to 7 p.m. Central Time.
We're going to have a little bit of discussion, then we're going to do a writing sprint. We'll come back after that. We'll answer a few questions, dialogue a little bit, maybe have another writing sprint. But we want to help you move your project forward, as well as move our projects forward. We want to do that with a live Write With Me. Join us if you would.
Number 3 is the word just. Just is a word that we use in dialogue a lot. We use it all the time because we just have something we just want to say to make our point. And so we just use just. And so we use it without thinking about it. And we will do that in our writing as well. It is an overused word that most of the time does not need to be there. So do a word search for just and remove it from the sentence. And if the sentence still makes sense, get rid of it. You didn't need it to begin with, and all it does is slow down and clutter up your sentence. My example is Terrence and Roy have been assigned to guard duty. One of them will always be just outside your door. If you need anything, just knock on the door and let one of them know. They can always get me a message. I changed it to Terrence and Roy have guard duty. One of them will always be outside your door. If you need anything, knock on the door and let them know. They can get the message to me. All I did was remove the word just from those sentences, and the sentences still made sense. That word, all it was doing was cluttering up what I was trying to say, and by removing it, it makes the meaning more clear and uncluttered. Number 4 and number 5 are together because I actually found an example from my writing of a sentence that has both of these things in it. So I was able to get rid of both of them and give you an example of getting rid of both of them in one sentence. So number 4 is started. We don't start something, we just do it. So when you use the word started, what it does is it pulls the reader out of the experiences, slows it down. You don't need the word started at all. If you're going to do something, do it. And then number 5 is suddenly, and it's a very similar thing. If something happens, it happens. It doesn't suddenly happen. There's very few reasons to use the word suddenly. An example is suddenly the door opened. Well, get to the point. You don't need the suddenly, just the door opened. My example is this. Victoria touched Blaze's arm and started to slip the needle in. When she recoiled, suddenly, she rolled her shoulders and returned to Blaze's arm with the needle. I changed that to Victoria touched Blaze's arm and slipped the needle in her soft flesh. Victoria flinched and jerked away. Blaze studied the bobbing needle with a grim look. That changed the sentence a little bit, but it still works, and I got rid of started and I got rid of suddenly. Number 6 is the word that. Oh, that is a sticky word that the majority of the time we don't need to have in the sentence. So this is a similar thing as some of the previous words I've talked about. If you go to your sentences, search through your document for the word that, remove that word from your sentence, and if the sentence still makes sense, please get rid of it. You don't need it. My example is this. Dust swirled in the air and tumbleweeds rolled across the road, disappearing into the vast desert that stretched on either side of them. And I changed it to say, dust swirled in the air and tumbleweeds rolled across the road, disappearing into the vast desert stretching on either side. If you look at those sentences, you can see that I changed a few things. I got rid of the word that because it didn't need to be there. And I also got rid of some other unnecessary words. I cut out the other side of them. I cut out of them. And all it says now is the other side. Because there's a lot of things that we have that we don't need to say. They're unnecessary words. You want to make sure you get rid of unnecessary words. Number 7 is really. You really want to get rid of really if you possibly can, because that is really, it's a filler word and it's a cheater word to use a weaker word. If you do a locate of the word really, you want to look at what stronger word could you use to replace that. It's usually paired with another word like really good or really happy. Instead of saying really good, say excellent or outstanding. You can usually replace whatever word really is modifying with a stronger word. An example of this would be but it faded really fast, instead say, it faded quickly. My example from my manuscript is, are you guys ready to go? We really need to move a bit faster if we want to get there before sundown, Gray said and reached to help them to their feet. And I changed it to, are you guys ready? We need to move faster if we want to get there before sundown, Gray said and reached to help them to their feet. By removing the word really and removing some of the unnecessary words, it really cleans it up, makes it cleaner and easier to read. Number 8 and 9 are very similar words. It's down and up. And an example of this is we know that if we sit, we're sitting. We don't need to sit down or stand up because we know that if we sit, we're going down, and if we stand, we're going up. An example from my manuscript of down is Blaze leaned into Aurora and they sank down onto another mattress. And I changed it to say Aurora and Blaze sank onto another mattress. An example of up is Blaze pulled the blanket up to her neck and squeezed her eyes shut as another bolt sent shadows of light dancing across the room. I changed it to say, Blaze pulled the blanket to her neck and squeezed her eyes shut as another bolt sent shadows of light dancing across the room. Gray stood up and pulled on his boots. Instead, say, Gray stood and pulled on his boots. All of those examples are great things to look at when you're looking at up and down. We often use those words when we really don't need them. So when you do a word search of up and down, make sure that you read the sentence and think about what you're saying. Because if it's something that we all know, we're going to go down or up, then try to remove it or rework your sentence to remove down and up if possible. Number 10 is big and small. These are very simplistic words that we often use without thinking, but there are so many other words that are much stronger descriptive words to describe whatever it is you're describing. If something's big, how big is it? Is it enormous? Is it huge? Oh my goodness, there's so many words for big. Use a stronger word for big. And if it's small, how small is it? Is it tiny? Is it minuscule? How small is it? Find a better word anytime you use big or small. And here's an example from my manuscript. This window was unbroken and looked out over a big clearing of land. I changed it to say, the unbroken window looked out over a huge clearing of land. Now in that example, I actually did multiple things because I also got rid of the word was, which this is a freebie. You also want to get rid of the word was if you can. But that usually requires you to rework the order of your sentence, which isn't a bad thing. Sometimes the word was is necessary depending on what you're doing. But if you can rework the sentence to make the sentence more active, that's a good thing. So that's also what I did. I removed the word was. I also got rid of the word big and used the word huge. So you want to make sure, as I said, look at your sentence. Make sure that the changes, that they work. There you have 10 words to eliminate from your writing to make your writing stronger and better. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.